I'm a real film journalist. I don't know how it happened, but somehow Blumhouse granted me an early screener of their upcoming movie DASHCAM, and I got to see it a full 3 weeks before it premieres officially. And it took me about a week and a half to make a video about it. Me! With my pokey YouTube channel, got a screener of DASHCAM. I'd like to take this moment to thank Michelle Nesk for allowing me to post my reviews on her website, thebloodshed.com, link in the description, and for encouraging me to reach out to Blumhouse and request this screener in the first place. I could not have expected them to be bothered with a minor critic like myself, but they were. They sent me a copy, and I'm thankful to them, I'm thankful to her, and I'm thankful to you watching this right now for allowing me to reach the point in my life where this was possible. So thank you, all of you. It's a bit awkward then, the turn this has to take, because should this be the pale horse upon which my campaign for world conquest shall ride, then I'm gonna put holy water on that son of a mare right now, because DASHCAM has to be the single worst horror movie I have seen all year by a margin wide enough to cast oil tankers in. In a way, it's the best thing that could have happened, because I was questioning myself whether I could remain objective under the circumstance, whether I could give a fair and honest review about this movie, considering I may or may not be staking my career on it, but no. I can't even begin to pretend that I like this movie. Had I seen this movie in cinema, this would have been the first movie in my life to make me walk out of a cinema. It's that bad. I will be fair and say there is one specific thing which, if it hadn't been in the movie, I would be a lot more forgiving than I am, and that is the lead. I get it. I know she's supposed to be annoying, but Christ's sake, Savage, you trapped me with her for 1 hour and 16 minutes! Okay, let's start with the basics. In its ways, DASHCAM subverts the standard horror movie template by, instead of having a gaggle of amoral characters being picked off one by one as some kind of poetic retribution, we have one amoral character holding the camera, and everyone around her dies. Which, I'm not sure, but I think there might be some sort of hidden message in it. I don't know, it's very subtle, but she is a COVID-denying, MAGA hat-wearing social media activist with the personality of a Twitter handle who is about as well written as a self-insert fiction villain, and, like I said, everything bad that happens is her fault. The lead is played by Annie Hardy. I know very little about Annie Hardy. I have never seen any of her movies. But she's either a very talented actress who knows how to make her character as utterly unbearable as possible, or she's a complete monster that Savage let loose on set and just filmed her milling about. And for God's sake, I hope it's the former. The movie begins with her driving around Los Angeles, coming up with slam poetry as she's driving, and commenting about how awful the lockdown is and what it does to people. You know, very highbrow, very intelligent stuff, very educated, you know. And the movie doesn't make it clear if this is her pastime or her job. For all I know, she could be living on benefits. Which makes me realize how little the movie actually gives us any reason to care about her. Apparently she has a reasonably large following. She has comments and reactions coming up all the time, every few seconds, as you're watching the movie, which doesn't get aggravating whatsoever. Either way, she has decided to hop on a flight and visit an old friend of hers in England to escape the American oppression, and while there, she keeps giving us more reasons to hate her. She's the kind of annoying which is borderline acceptable when you're 14. You know, the kind of annoying where you are trying to get a rise out of people, and when you get a rise out of them, you make them out to be the bad guys for reacting to you, telling you what to do and who to be. After arriving in London, she sneaks into Stretch's apartment, Stretch being her old friend, played by Amar Shada Patel, and I'm probably mispronouncing that, so I'm sorry about that. And things are immediately tense between Annie and Stretch's girlfriend, his very liberal girlfriend. And this comes to a head when said girlfriend finds a MAGA hat among Annie's things. And while Stretch is trying to keep the peace and keep his girlfriend from throwing Annie out on the street, she does the sensible thing and steals Stretch's car and hijacks his job. His job being as a food delivery man because, she was driving around in his car and she got a notification on his phone about a meal needing to be delivered. She stole his phone as well. You know, it's just for a gaff, just for a lark. And finally, this is where the movie decides to become a horror movie. Sort of. There is horror as an aesthetic and horror as an experience, with the best horror movies having an overlap between the two. DASHCAM is placed firmly on horror as an aesthetic with a hard, divisive line from horror as an experience. By happenstance, the order that Annie decides to pick up is ignored by the person who made it, and instead she is offered a considerable amount of money to take an elderly woman called Angela, played by Angela Enahoro, and I am definitely mispronouncing that name, I'm sorry. This is where the movie goes from bad to worst, when Savage doesn't pull a Nightmare on Elm Street and doesn't have Angela kill Annie right there and then, and instead we are left stuck with Annie and Stretch, who managed to catch up with Annie, for an hour and 16 minutes! Which sounds unusually short, but trust me, it feels cruelly and unusually long. I really don't like Annie. But looking past her, there are a few things about this movie that I did enjoy. Like I said, it's more horror aesthetic than horror experience. Darkened halls, blood and gore, shaky cam, lots of screaming, but at no point does it feel scary. Unless those very specific things scare you. And the reason it doesn't feel scary is we are given no reason to care. It's all spectacle without substance. I've already gone over how much I hate the main character. Which I get is the point, but I'll get to that later. But all the other characters that die because of her, I'm given no reason to care about them either. The only reason I like them is because I like them in contrast to Annie. They are given essentially no screen time, and they are given almost no personality either. We're given brief exposition about why supposedly we should care about them dying, but I'm sorry, that's not enough. Unless you can personally relate to what they're going through on some level, then no, it's not scary. But even if it doesn't feel scary, it does look scary. Like Alice Cooper. Now, it's Blumhouse. Performing magic on a small budget is their whole business. And most of the special effects in this movie are practical. This I admire about it. There's blood and teeth and flesh and body horror of all sorts, and while it is easy to spot where the wires would be and where the camera movement cuts away to not let you look too closely at the prosthetics, it does look alright. Not spectacular, but alright. And I do like it when a found footage movie goes out of its way to look real and not rely on bad CGI. There's also a remarkable variety to the film, with lots of different locations for the characters to travel to. Like, it's been a very long time since I last saw a horror movie set in a creepy amusement park, with the characters having just been in the forest and then making their way to a castle. Like, it feels a little random, but it's not an uninteresting movie to watch. Many things go on all at once. There is the creature feature, but there's also running from gunning, hide and seek, car chases. So much so it feels kind of like keys being jangled in your face after a while. But depending on what sort of person you are, that may be a positive or a negative. But for me personally, it feels a little bit unfocused, and it feels like the movie is struggling to reach the not very considerable length of 1 hour and 16 minutes. So there are things to like about the movie if you look past Annie. But if you look past Annie, you don't have a movie anymore. Like any good villain, she is the driving force of the story. She is the one with agency, she is the one making decisions regardless of the circumstance. She doesn't make decisions in response to the situation, she makes decisions regardless of the situation. And her every decision makes things worse. So, yeah. Everything is centered around Annie, but if Annie wasn't there, there wouldn't be a movie. I really hope this is all, and by this all I mean Annie and the plot is meant as a satire, and that Rob Savage or Gemma Hurley or Jed Shepard, the writers, weren't actually trying to make a real point with the character. I really hope that, but I just wonder if maybe that's how the movie started out, if they had just looked past their initial intention, if they had stopped looking at it as a satire and stopped thinking about ways to develop the movie further, maybe the movie could have been better. Like, let's say Annie's persona was a persona that she put on for her camera. And when things started going sour, we saw the mask slip and saw what she was actually like as a person and gotten to know her through the movie that way. Like if it was all just an act that she put on for her followers' sake. I think not only would that have made her far more bearable as a character, but she wouldn't have dragged the entire movie down with her. Instead, we have a horror movie that isn't scary, starring a character you want to see die, persevering until the very end and beyond. In the most baffling creative decision I have seen since Sam Raimi was allowed to direct a Marvel movie, but wasn't allowed to direct it the way Sam Raimi would have. Rob Savage keeps Annie around during the end credits. And the end credits consists of names popping up like comments on a stream as Annie drives around, rapping about everyone involved in the movie f***ing and killing each other. And it is so awful. And speaking of that, actually, the entire movie takes place in a stream that Annie is making, but it's not a found footage movie. And what I mean by that is several times in the movie the stream loses connection. If this was found footage, what should have happened there is we stopped seeing what was going on. Instead, we are kept there, without a connection, watching it unfold. Sort of like being stuck in a camera housing, watching the heads-up display, with the streaming interface standing in for the heads-up display. So not only does it fail as a movie-going experience, it fails in found footage technique as well. In fact, the presentation makes it less scary, with the peanut gallery of comments going up commenting on the movie. Sort of like a comedian standing on stage with no one laughing and then goes, oh, well, this isn't going very well, is it? Hoping it'll dispel the tension, when in fact all it does is encourage the audience to start throwing tomatoes at the thing. DASHCAM is a mediocre movie dragged down by its story and main character. Now, if both of those things were just bad, I wouldn't feel as strongly about this movie as I do. But because the writing team and the actress went out of their way to make the lead as unbearable as possible in a misguided attempt at social satire, it dragged down the entire filming experience. And I sentence DASHCAM to a 3 on a scale of 11. That's still more than I gave the Flower Tapes, but you can talk about themes and story and whatever you want till you turn blue, but in a visual medium, visuals matter, and the fact is, this movie had a bigger budget with better special effects than that movie. But I still want Sean Began to take notice of this. If you had more money, you could probably make a better movie than Rob Savage, if this movie is anything to go by. Thank you all for watching. I have been Cause Scratches, and I hope Rob Savage keeps making movies. I hear this one's pretty good.